a deal breaker.
Well, it'd be a deal breaker for anyone, left and right, no question.
Except it wasn't, because he already tried to do it, and the right was like, no big deal, no big deal.
I don't think that's
It was a giant deal.
Yeah, I don't think that's quite true. But
Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks was a guest on the conservative show TRIGGERnometry to debate whether or not Donald Trump is a fascist or will be a fascist or will be a dictator as president. We're going to take a look at clips of Cenk Uygur on the TRIGGERnometry podcast. I will share my thoughts on this as well. Let's get into this together.
So you don't call Trump Hitler, and you don't call the Republicans Nazis. But when you say the word fascist, as you say, the meaning of that word has been eroded. That's where most people's minds is going to go, right?
So what do you guys tell me, what should I call his obvious dictatorial tendencies? And his obvious over-the-top
You know
racism?
what? Actually, this is a really great question, because what I'd love for you to do is, and this is a genuine question, I'm not trying to catch you out or anything like that. I genuinely am interested. I have heard a lot of rhetoric from people about Donald Trump and the concerns that they have about the next 4 years. And, people use words like fascist, dictatorial, etc. What do you fear over the next 4 years he is going to do that makes you say in the present moment that he's dictatorial, fascist? What is he going to do you think?
Yeah. So, again, I don't know that he's going to do it, because there's countervailing forces.
What do you fear?
And I think the countervailing forces are super interesting, and we should talk about that.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested to see which way the right wing goes in this country under Trump. But the worst case scenario is he gets frazzled and feels challenged, and he falls back on what he always does, which is just protect his ego. And so he starts pilfering, and that's very much in his nature. Grab, take, because now there's no accountability. What are you going to do? Impeach him? What are you going to do? Arrest him? No accountability. There's no brakes in the car. So we're all at his mercy.
Sorry to interrupt, but this is important for clarity. What do you mean by pilfering? He's going to be pilfering and pilfering.
Okay, so easy examples, but there's a million of these. He puts Jared Kushner in charge of the Middle East last time around, and Saudi Arabia. Jared Kushner at some point goes to Saudi Arabia, talks to Mohammed bin Salman, and right afterwards, Mohammed bin Salman arrests a whole bunch of people. Okay, I don't want to get into too much into what happened in that meeting and what the results were, but whatever it was, Mohammed bin Salman was super pleased, because right after the election, he gives Jared Kushner $2 billion to manage. But he gets 2 and 20 on that. So if you know private equity and how that works, what that means is he's going to make hundreds of millions of dollars. So if Hunter Biden got a $2 billion deal from the Saudis after Joe Biden left office, I was like, Hunter Biden's not a Ukrainian gas expert. That's nuts. Okay, and that was $5 million.
So your fear number one is that his family will benefit financially from his presence, and him will benefit.
Anybody, Cenk Uygur is absolutely 100% correct on this. I mean, anyone who thinks that Donald Trump and his family and his friends won't financially benefit from being president of the United States as they did the first time around is either a fool or just willfully ignorant or part of the cult. I mean, one of any combination of the three. And Cenk Uygur talks about Jared Kushner getting these $2 billion. How this wasn't just every single day a part of the news cycle for years is, well, we know how. It's the corporate media. They suck. But as he's saying here, if this would have been flipped and Hunter Biden got $2 billion, I mean, Fox News and the right-wing podcasters, that'd be all they would talk about for the next 50 years. As Cenk Uygur said, there are 100 examples of this. We had the protective gear we had all the protective gear during COVID that was sold off to the highest bidder. We know the Trumps and all of them are scumbags. But what kind of a scumbag do you have to be to do something like that?
Financially.
His donors, most of all his donors.
And his donors.
What else?
Okay, so that's, but to be fair to Trump, part of the reason the establishment hates him is because he's systemically and personally corrupt, whereas they're just largely systemically corrupt.
I'm accepting all this for the sake of argument without challenging, because I just want you to get to the real fascism that he's going to do that you worry
So the
about.
reason I'm saying that is because since most of the politicians are systemically corrupt anyway, that's not the fascism
That's
I'm
my
referring
point.
to. Yeah.
So where's the fascism?
So he says, I'm going to deport all the undocumented immigrants. So some people might say, yeah, good. Rip them out of their homes, 13, 15 million people, whatever it is. Oh, they're running a diner. They're beloved in their neighborhood. They married an American citizen. Whatever they did, I don't care. and their kids are American citizens. Rip them away from their babies and send them the goddamn back home. Now, that's a debatable point as to whether that's fascism. My guess is that if he starts doing it, and you start seeing people ripped out of their homes, that people are going to go, oh, that don't look good.
I don't think he's going to do that.
Yeah. Well, okay, we're going to find out. He might not. We're going to find out.
But if he was to, let's say, I think the more likely scenario, I don't know if you agree with Cenk, but I think it's possible that this is the more likely scenario, is he deports all the people who've committed a crime in this country who are illegal immigrants, right? People not only came here illegally, but have committed a crime, and people who don't have American family and don't have dependents here. Let's say he was to deport all those people. Would that be fascism in your view?
I don't even know if he deported all undocumented immigrants, it would be fascism. I'm not even stipulating to that.
So let's get to the fascism, though, because this is what I want to get to, right?
And by the way, people who committed crimes should obviously be deported.
Right.
No one disagrees with that. So then the thing that I'm concerned about is both him and the potential attorney general saying, if you're on a campus and you're protesting Trump, you're protesting Israel, you're protesting the oil companies, you're protesting something we don't like, arrest and deport you. Wait, what happened to cancel culture? I mean, arresting someone for protesting or voicing their speech is the most both cancel culture you could do. I mean, you're taking the guy's freedom away, right?
Yeah, agreed. But
deporting people that are American citizens, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, you can't do that. But did he do any of that in his first term?
So he didn't do that. Okay. But and that's why I say, guys, when he's running, he threatens to do total complete shutdown of Muslims. Yeah. He threatens to arrest and deport people, etc. But he didn't necessarily do it. So for example, they said, lock her up. And then he got into office and he said, no, I'm not locking Hillary Clinton up. So I have an open mind. But when he threatens those type of things, I go, I am deeply, deeply concerned. Now, here's other things.
Okay.
So they had a 3-hour meeting after he lost the election where Michael Flynn and I believe Sidney Powell, don't quote me on that, I don't want to get sued, okay, but definitely Michael Flynn said, let's use martial law. Let's roll out the tanks, okay? And we won this election, and we're going to correct the fraud, and let's go grab the actual ballot machines, okay? And Trump was like, okay, now I'm listening. Now we're having a conversation. And that's why it lasted 3 hours.
So at
the end, hold on.
No, hold on. You're talking about something that already happened. I'm asking you about the future. Let's just stick with that.
No, but that's totally relevant.
No, well, I'm sure, which is why I'm asking you the question to follow up. So do you fear that at the end of this 4-year period, he's not going to relinquish power? Is that what?
Before we get into this, I want to address a couple of things about the immigration and all of that. So the TRIGGERnometry guys say, Cenk, the TRIGGERnometry guys say that Donald Trump is going to just deport criminals. Well, and then, Cenk Uygur's talking about babies ripped from their families and all of that. We saw in his first term that it wasn't just criminals that were deported. If they just deported criminals, I don't think anyone, almost anyone would have a problem with that. We don't want criminals from other countries here in the United States illegally. But there were all kinds of stories during Trump's terms where it's a guy that owns a restaurant and he's lived in a little town in Indiana for 30 years and he gets deported. And the people say, well, we didn't want him to get deported, or someone's spouse gets deported. Or we saw, there were instances where someone was brought here as a baby and then sent back to a country that they've never been to other than being born there, and they don't speak the language, and these people were not criminals. So the concern to me is, obviously politicians lie and all of that, but they tend to, the lies tend to be good things that they're going to do. I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to, if the Democrats would talk about Medicare for all, then, push comes to shove and they say, oh, sorry, the mean old Republicans wouldn't let us do Medicare for all. But when you have Republicans talking about bad things that they want to do, in my opinion, Donald Trump wants to do these things, whether or not the infrastructure is there for him to be able to do it, whether the courts will stand up against him as they did during his first term. Remember the Muslim ban? We're going to have a complete and total Muslim ban until we can figure out what the hell is going on. And that happened for a week or two or whatever. And then the courts were able to shut it down. Are the courts going to protect us this time around? We don't know. And in terms of protesters and all of that, I mean, this was a pretty small thing, but Donald Trump, they gassed protesters so that he could do his stupid Bible stunt where he held the Bible upside down. So will Donald Trump be a fascist and a dictator? We don't know for sure, as Cenk Uygur is saying here, but it would be much better to have a candidate who's not saying that they'll be a dictator and spouting all this fascist rhetoric ahead of time. I don't want to take the chance personally.
You're saying.
So since he didn't relinquish power last time, yes.
Well, ultimately
one
he
of the
did, but you fear.
Oh, come on, guys.
Fine, let's accept that for the sake of argument again. So you fear that at the end of this 4-year period, when he can no longer run for election again, you fear that he will not hand over the presidency.
A guy who said, let's terminate the Constitution, consider martial law, and had a fake elector plot to steal an election, might he try to stay in power? Of course, he tried to do it once.
Well, that's good. So we got to. So you fear that at the end of this 4-year period, he will not vacate the White House.
That is one of my concerns, absolutely, and that alone is a deal breaker.
Well, it'd be a deal breaker for anyone, left and right, no question.
Except it wasn't, because he already tried to do it, and the right was like, no big deal, no big deal.
I don't think that's
it was
quite,
a giant deal.
Yeah, I don't think that's quite true. But anyway, that's your big concern.
So that's number one. Number two is, the reason I was telling you about martial law is because he's also said, let's use the military to shoot the protesters in the legs. Let's use the National Guard to arrest citizens, etc. When you're talking about arresting or shooting U.S. citizens and you using the military to do that because you don't like their protests, and you could be livid about their protests, it doesn't matter.
Sure, it's
we have a right to protest.
Of course.
And when he says that, and he has definitively said that and said it on the record, if you go and do that, now that there are no brakes in the car, and there is no General Milley, and there is no General Kelly, and they're not going to be able to stop him, if he does that, do you guys agree that would be fascism?
Well, of course.
Yeah.
So
good.
your great concerns are just, to replay it for people, and then I'll hand over to Francis, are, number one, at the end of the 4-year term that he currently has, he's not going to hand over the presidency, number one. And number two, he is going to be deeply un-American about the way he handles free speech and the right to protest and the right to free assembly. In other words, he will take protesters and strip them of citizenship. He will have the army shoot them. He will imprison people for turning up on a college campus and burning an American flag, let's say. Those are your two main kind of this is the fascism that might happen. Have I got you right?
That's right. Cool. And I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen.
But that's
I'm
your
saying
concern.
he has said those things.
That's your concern.
And it makes me concerned that he will do those things.
Okay.
I mean, it seems pretty obvious. I mean, what Cenk Uygur is saying here, he's said these things. There is the chance that he will do these things. Kamala Harris was not saying, I won't accept the results of the election. And Joe Biden wasn't saying this for the last 4 years, that the election, they're going to steal the election from me, blah, blah, blah. And the Democrats did not try to stage a coup and overthrow an election 4 years ago or 8 years ago. When Hillary Clinton lost, all the right wingers say, well, she didn't concede. She conceded or she's, complained about it or whatever. She conceded the next day and there was no attempt at a coup. The right wingers lie and say that January 6th was just a peaceful tour and all this nonsense. I mean, we all saw it on television. We all know what happened that day. So why would you take the chance, as Cenk Uygur is saying here to the Triggernometry guys, why would you take a chance on allowing somebody back in there who's already tried to overthrow the government once? There's certainly a chance that he's going to try to stay in there. They're already saying, well, he served 2 terms, but it's not consecutive terms, so it doesn't count, blah, blah, blah. I mean, I'd be shocked if he just goes away quietly. Maybe we could be wrong about this and it'll just be a normal presidency and, Donald Trump has mellowed and he won't do any of these fascist things. Who knows? But why take the chance when he's shown fascist tendencies in the past? I mean, we have the evidence of the things that he said and the things that he did while in office. Let me know what you think about all of this. Do you think Cenk Uygur is right? Or do you think the Triggernometry guys are correct that maybe this is overblown from Cenk Uygur? Let me know what you think in the comments about Cenk Uygur, Triggernometry, Donald Trump being a fascist. Anything that you want to comment on, make sure to give me a like and subscribe so I can keep growing this channel. If you like my content, if you don't give me a like and subscribe. Watch somebody else's channel. But if you like what I'm doing, Please subscribe if you haven't done so I can continue to grow. This is Chris on Culture, and I will see you in the next video.